All right. Well, I think we're live. I think y'all can hear audio coming from me. I'm in a new setup, and I hope y'all are joining me. I'll be able to see your chat down below in whatever various platform you're on, depending on the day and how the tech feels. But this is kind of a new series. I'm home in my home studio, and so I'm excited to be doing this. But this is also a new series that I'm going to be doing where I start to rebroadcast presentations that I've given in the past. I hope you can hear it clearly. My son has decided now's the time to vacuum, so this should be fun, but we'll figure that out. So anyways, short story is, this is one of the presentations. How did this start? I did a presentation at TitleCon this year. It was awesome, where they had asked me to do something around seller impersonation fraud. And I'll go ahead and just get started with this one. I'll close by saying, though, that I intend to do this with a lot more of my talks, wherever the company that has asked me to come and present allows it, or where I feel like I own the intellectual property. One such example would be the hackening. Jason Slagle and Tom Lawrence and I should be doing something to actually tell what we did there and walk through that. But hopefully this works for y'all. So I'm going to change to my screen setup. Let me know you can hear me if anybody's there. It says there's a bunch of you here, but let me know if you can hear me in the chat, please. All right, let me get set up here. You know, you wouldn't think you'd get nervous doing a presentation by yourself in your own studio live, but I did live for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wanted it to feel like what I did on the stage. I wanted to feel like what I actually presented to me and also to you. But second, it's because I'm a procrastinator. And Sean, I'm so sorry it took me this long to get this out, but I am finally doing it because I didn't want to record it. They do hear me. Thank you so much. It's good to see you, Eddie. So anyways, without further ado, I'm going to redo this. So I'll introduce myself real quick. My name is Matt Lee. If you're on this channel, I hope you already know who I am. I work for PAX8. They are awesome and allow me to just educate. Just go around and educate both myself as well as others and empower MSPs to grow. One of those MSPs is one that I love with all my heart, and it's Premier One with TitleCon, and they've had me there now 3 years. I've really, really enjoyed it. And this time they challenged me a little bit. And Sean said, Matt, I want you to talk about something you don't know. Okay, I can figure things out. And so I started researching seller impersonation fraud. And as I did it, I realized that I'd spent more time researching it than I could have just actually done it. And that's how I came to how I wanted to do this talk. I just simply wanted to do it. So I'm going to do everything I can without breaking the law to illustrate to you how this happens and how I would approach it and the way I would pick this apart. So let's see if this works. I'll press next. So in order to do this, I'm going to put on my bad Matt persona, which just like I did on stage, I'm going to take off my jacket of presentation, which by the way, I wear my jacket because Tiger wears red on Sundays. I wear my pink jacket or jacket of the year on presentation days. So if you see me wearing my jacket, I'm probably presenting that day, just as a tip. Not that anybody cares. Okay, so I was going to put on bad Matt persona, put on my hoodie, and decided to approach this like a threat actor. Well, what do I need to do in order to be successful? Well, it's always the prep. It's always the prep. I need to do things before I ever get started to ensure I don't go to jail. I don't want to go to jail. I just want to steal money, right? So I want to try to avoid jail, steal money. Those are my two goals. Avoid jail, steal money. So I need to establish operational security. Also, I apologize for my voice. I'm getting a little sick, or I've been sick. I'm getting over it. But let me stop and take a drink of my water every now and again. Okay, so establish operational security. What does that mean? Hopefully some of y'all in the audience know what this means. It's really about just watching out all the stuff I build and make sure it doesn't come back to me and, you know, trying to think about that from that perspective. This is like I call the don't get caught phase. As I'm doing this, I'm doing things to help prevent me getting caught later once I've done this. Well, what would I do? Well, I'd first get some kind of VPN client to make my first initial contact be from another place, whether that be Nord, right? They have their download free, get started now free. Proton has theirs as well, right? There's tons of them. There's tons and tons and tons of them. And so I would start by gaining an access to actually hide my identity a little bit and where I'm coming from. If possible, I'd do that with a stolen identity, right? I already have another burner identity or something I've set up that I can use for that stolen credit cards, name, anything in that nature. But I want to be able to start this up in a way that wouldn't come back to me. I might want to be somewhere in Colorado, like Denver or perhaps Fort Collins. Might come up later. So I'll go ahead and set my location with one of these things too, which is so nice because it helps me later show potentially that I'm somewhere I'm not. I would initially have Chasm. First and foremost, I'd work from a Chasm workspace. If anybody doesn't know, Chasm's a great tool for ephemerality. What I mean by that is it's spinning up Docker containers of this virtual machine running that gets destroyed and goes back to a golden image and allows me to work from that place without a lot of forensics evidence living there. And if I go even further later, which I'll show you, will make it even better. But Chasm helps me hide my tracks afterwards. It allows me to do things in a way that won't be necessarily as easy to track from a forensics perspective. I won't say it's impossible, but I would say harder, certainly harder. Okay. Then I'm going to go use that Chasm space, because what is Chasm? It gives you, like, and I'll go into it more later, but it gives you a web browser. You can use Chrome, you can use Safari, you can spin up Linux desktop, Windows desktops, you can do all kinds of stuff that allows you to do what you need to do in the case. But I'm going to create an email account, not a hacker-I promise @gmail.com, right? I'm not going to use this to give to anybody. I'm going to use this as my source when I start signing up for services and accounts that I want not necessarily to come back to me. Do that from a VPN initially on my Chasm workspace, which is how I'm going to try to do some hiding of my tracks a little bit. And I'll sign in for that. Okay, now, next, I'm going to go use something that allows me to establish a place that's not on my desktop and in my house and coming back to my IP, but rather coming back to a service I'm paying for as a somewhat of a bastion host. And as they say, learn here, dream here, DigitalOcean. I love them, I'm not saying anything negative. I like to call it learn here, steal dreams here. It's so beautiful. But anyways, the point is I can sign in with that new Google identity that we have here. I can sign in with various different methods, just the email address if I wanted, and start spinning up resources, presumably on a stolen credit card that I'll have already obtained, or legitimate funds in someone's account that have compromised, right? Something to that nature. Okay, so Chasm Workspaces, again, what's so nice about DigitalOcean is it allows me just to spin up Chasm Workspaces as a droplet. Like, it's click, instant, up. Here's your password. Have a nice day. Change password. Don't be a noob. Don't expose the ports to anyone else externally, right? Like, just do it locally. Do it with I think I did it with a ZT tunnel when I usually access these things, right, in some form or fashion. Okay, so I'm going to spin up Chasm. Chasm allows me to spin up a Google browser, allows me to spin up Spiderfoot, which is a nice tool. It helps me take open source intelligence and automate some of the gathering of those things, right? It's a pretty neat tool. Sometimes get a little wild. And depending on how you tune it, you can get terrible, terrible data. But you can get really good data if you do it well, and it's fantastic at making that fast. I'll use the Onion browser, right, from Tor. I can actually just spin up an Onion browser directly in this. I can set my proxy settings that I want from that at a configuration level and just deploy this. So I'm going to deploy Chasm, Spiderfoot, Google. That allow me to run those in little containers, allow me to burn those containers anytime I feel the need to. Okay, done with the prep phase, at least a little. There's more you could do if I was really not wanting to get caught. But just illustratively, let's move to the next phase, which I call the hunt. All right, the hunt is like using open source intelligence yet again, which we're going to dig into here in just a minute, what that really means, to actually find information. Well, I'm looking for what? What am I looking for when I'm setting up a seller impersonation fraud? Anybody in the audience? Gotta be fast on the keyboards. Okay, fair enough. I'm looking for a property to sell. I want to sell someone's property right out from underneath them. Well, I'm going to use open source intelligence tools to do that, and they're provided very easily. I can just go to the property appraiser's website. No problem. Just go straight there, find the GIS database that allows me to search around and find nice, juicy tidbits of information in one convenient place. I'm going to use white pages. I'll use Google Dorking. I'll use other tools like Facebook, like how many times have you answered silly forms that shouldn't be answered? I'll use those to gather information or find out contextual information about you and your family. All right, so that's the hunt phase. What's my dream steal of a property? Like, what would I be looking for if I was trying to approach this? Because when I say ICP, I do not mean insane clown posse. I do mean your ideal client profile. Well, just like you as an MSP should have an ideal client profile, or you as a business, you should also have an ideal property to steal. What's my ideal property? I want it not developed. I don't want a house on it. I don't have to deal with any of the stuff or the inspection or any of the things that might come up out of it, access to the house, people showing up. I don't want any of that. I want undeveloped land. I want an older owner. I want to know that that person is probably older, like in the 70s would be beautiful, maybe even 80s, which you'll find here in a bit. I may have found that. Why? Because they're probably the clickers. They're probably going to get scammed. Their data is probably on the dark web. They've had accounts forever. They've given things away frivolously in times that didn't matter to crappy providers that aren't here anymore. Older owners are probably going to be the ones to look for. I also think they're more susceptible just because of their time and phase in life. Okay, no mortgage. Why? I don't want anything going to their mortgage company, mailing to the address of the mortgage holder and saying, you're getting paid off. I don't want that. I don't want my seller to know. I want low deed activity. That was just one of my ideas. I didn't find that in anywhere, but just mainly in the sense that I want to know that It's not being developed. There's not somebody likely doing something right now. We don't see that kind of playing out. So I want low deed activity in the recent couple of years. In my filters, I was looking for, I think, 3 or 4 years. And really, if I was going to do this and spend my money efficaciously and time efficaciously, I'd want to see if dark web data is available, which means, and you'll see in my play, I want somebody with a weird name. I don't want to look for David Smith. You know any wrong David Smiths I'm going to find trying to sell this? I want to find the right David Smith information. So I'm going to find somebody weird. I want to find a weird name. And the good news is some of the older generations have some strange names, which you'll just teasing. If you're watching this later, sir, I apologize. I did find a supposed victim. Okay, so I wanted to steal a property in Grand Lake, Colorado. It's a beautiful place. I love the area. It's wonderful. So why not steal there, right? And so I went to the assessor's office in Grand County. I found their parcel viewer online map and their property value information about their assessors, how they function, how many people there are, what size organization, all kinds of beautiful things you can gather and garner out of those websites. All right, parcel viewer, let's go look. Assessor's office, property value information. Those are the 2 tools that I need to do my initial filtering for my victim. All right, first one, Grand County. It was actually hard. I apologize, y'all. It was actually hard for me to find a victim right in Grand Lake, the right property that met all the criteria, that met all the conditions. Everything's being developed. It's just a nightmare. I just went outside, just a little outside, down that little county road. If you see there, it kind of curves around the outside of the lake. I was just outside that left side. And I noticed a lot of development off to the right, but not much to the left. But there was egress. There was already access. Somebody already had an easement. And so I started hunting. And I kept coming upon these kind of veiled properties. Those suck, right? Veiled properties sucks. I'd have to learn information about them. I'd have to try to pierce the veil of the Reed Family Limited Partnership. Now, that could happen. I could go down that route and probably come to a same outcome. I'd have to create a lot more fraudulent documents to do that. Instead, I'm gonna keep looking. What's so nice, if you see all those little blue dots, those are the properties I marked off as, nope, those aren't the right property for me. I'm so happy that the GIS system allowed me to mark off the stuff that were not the ones I wanted, which allowed me to keep looking for empty properties I hadn't looked for until I finally found this one. And I happened upon Chester James Reed III. And I will refer to him for the rest of this talk in exactly that fashion. I apologize, but that's how I'm going to do it. Mr. Chester James Reed III decided to keep this one separately. I have information about him. He has an interesting name. My gut being the third. My boy's been around a minute. That was my gut on this one. We'll find out how that played out here in just a sec. And I think, hey, this is my money one, right? I got some property valuations on it. I have an idea of what it's worth. I can get some stuff from comps around it. All right, very awesome. So now I want to know more about it. What did I do? I just dug in by clicking on it and said, okay, when was the last sale date? 2010. They had an easement issued in 2024 as a warranty deed now, actually, 8/31/2024. I don't think that was there before. Maybe it was, but I believe it was for an easement. But the point is, this was a property that I was able to grab that was the perfect property. In fact, it's not. There's 2 more down as the one. But this is the point, is I can go in and dig into this information. All right. So I found out that. Now I'm going, okay, let's use OSINT, open source intelligence, which we tossed around a few times, to go find more information. Well, what is intelligence? It's certainly not me. So I'm not intelligent. But what is intelligence? Intelligence, in my mind, and actually well-defined by Sans.org and Ritu Gill, actually is very easy to say. Is open source intelligence is defined as intelligence, again, defining itself with itself. That sucks. Wait a minute, we'll get there. Produced by collecting, evaluating, and analyzing publicly available information with the purpose of answering specific intelligence question. So we have to have a question we're trying to answer in order for the intelligence to mean something. And it's also said that it's of equal note to say that information is not equal to intelligence. Why? Well, there's tons of data out there, and I'll get to that in a minute in the DIKW pyramid. But without giving meaning to the data, it's just raw data. It's just information. It doesn't mean anything to us until we analyze it in some way that means a question we're trying to answer with empirical evidence, right? That's what that comes down to. So open source intelligence is intelligence created by publicly available stuff. I didn't break any laws to do what I'm doing here. This is all publicly available information that I'm putting together to try to do intelligence. Okay. DIKW, I'm going to credit this to Sunil Yu. I don't believe he created this concept. He's the first one to introduce me to it. But the DIKW pyramid is also applicable in AI, and that's another talk, but data is at the very bottom. That's my heart rate right now. That's my temperature. Information is, holy crap, that's high. Are you nervous? That's knowledge. That guy must be nervous if he's got a high heart rate right now, or other like maybe underlying health conditions, I suppose, or the coffee this morning, all kinds of pieces of information that have to come to have knowledge of what's actually going on. All right, so the point is that we're gonna use open sources to find out information. What information do I want? I wanna know how old he is. I wanna know information about his family. I wanna know information about the property. I wanna know what I can do. What are the likelihood of getting caught from this human before I sell? So I'm gonna dig up that information. There are tons of places to get OSINT frameworks. This is one of them, osintframework.com. Just gives links to awesome things you can go search for and gather more information that can be used to source as intelligence as you put that information together with degrees of trust. Okay, we can also get that straight from Facebook. You ever answer that stupid trivia question of like, what did I just see yesterday? Your gingerbread name. Your gingerbread name is your date of birth by combining these three things, as well as your name of the first street you were on, the car you were on, like that's just information I'm going to use against you. Like, I'm not saying this trivia one's bad. I'm just saying in general, that's information that you put out there, something that's going to be there forever that I can search. And there's tools for doing so. One of those tools, again, being Spiderfoot, which allows you to take APIs or application programming interfaces of tools like Facebook, like paid for sources of information, like those ones that actually have your data from data mining operations, put that together and then provide context around it where possible, sometimes hallucinatory, but for the most part, pretty awesome, right? And allows me to gain information. In this case, I had an interesting enough name and I didn't actually have to do a lot of this. And I'm also not trying to compromise you. I don't want to take over your account, although that would be nice. I don't need to. I'm just impersonating you. I just need you not to find out. All right, so grab this information. And the other way we could go is like whitepages.com, right? I can do this for free. I can just get some information here. When I searched this, I found the guy in Grand Lake. I also found out he's in Fort Collins. Ha, huzzah, look at that. And it's bolded. I bet bolded gives me some information too. I also see there's a Chester James Reed IV. And then what I'm only surmising is the grandson that does not continue the name lineage. Like I'm not going to be the fifth bro. I can't live that life. I'm going to have to be Aaron. But we gain information and garner information here that's enough to say, that's probably my huckleberry, right? I'm pretty certain that that's my huckleberry. So I might want to commit to that, but I want to be very fiduciarily responsible when doing so. They want to charge me $11.99 for one time, and I'm already using a stolen credit card. I don't want to make that guy's life any worse, right? So I don't want to do that. If I wait long enough, I'll just get a $1 ad. Then I get a 5-day trial for $1. I'll just make sure and cancel it so he doesn't take any untowards more money than he should. But really, it's $1 for me to get this access to the rest of the data I want, addresses, information I might need for contextualization, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so if you follow, I probably bought 5 credit cards at $10 a piece, hoping they have a $100 balance on them so I can get through my traffic that I need to do, DigitalOcean, all the things I might need to pay for later. You'll see coming up. I have a $0 VPN trial, a $0 Gmail account, a $0 Chasm server for ephemerality. I have digital hosting for about $25. I think my average spend's like $57 or something right now in my DO account. Whitepages.com, I got it for $1. I was very coupon friendly there, right? I'm at $76 so far. Any questions so far in the audience, please bring them up in the chat. I'll be glad to stop. All right, Bad Matt's in $76 of somebody else's money. Okay, the hook. I've got a property. Let's set the hook. What do I have to do? I can't just go out and sell this property. I'm not a realtor. Chester James Reed III, here I am. So I need to do some things to get ready to do that. So I'm going to try to get that dark web information. I want a driver's license. I want other things. We'll get to that in a minute. I want to build a new identity for Chester James Reed III on Gmail. Something I can use that has his name in it or something, Chester 187 Colorado or something, right? Whatever that I can use in that. I want to lure a local realtor. I want to trick some realtor into legitimizing me, okay? I want to abuse the lack of know your customer. I want people that are potentially greedy to get the deal done to not necessarily care about knowing if I'm really Chester. I want to find a buyer. I need somebody to pay that sweet, sweet cash. And I have an ideal buyer, which would make my life easy, but we'll see what happens. All right, I'm going to go and do things like what Britton White does, right? Britton White, it's a shout out to him. Love you to death. Hopefully you see this on LinkedIn. But Britton goes and takes information that he finds in the dark web and tries to find those humans in important positions and notify them that they have passwords, that their home computer's compromised, things of that nature. Their password vault has their corporate accounts, compromised, things like that. Doing a great service. But it also means the data's out there, and the price isn't all that bad. We'll get to that in a bit. So we'll use dark web. We'll go in, we'll buy, we'll have the things we need, right? What is Tor? Just to dispel the myth of what is Tor. Tor is a project done by DARPA, I believe it was, or U.S. Naval Labs Research, I believe. U.S. Naval Research Laboratory developed a way to communicate when overseas that is secure, that allows us to help protect our people and informants, whatever it may be, across the application stack, right? So it did it in a different way that allowed us to control that made anonymity. The whole purpose of it was that, and I don't want to get into that, and there's people who definitely go, Matt, you're an idiot. It's not exactly how this, fine. I'm getting the general principle of this, that onion routing is what makes that possible, and the encryption in that application layer allows us to hide source and hide a lot of the information contained therein. So I'm gonna go buy stuff on the dark web in some of those places. I want Chester's social, his date of birth, his address, his driver's license photo, his email passwords. Maybe that's a bonus, like super bonus if I can get a password. But if I can at least get a driver's license photo out of his desktop that was skimmed, that'd be great. That would make my life happy, because then I can move forward with a lot of the egress of funds that we'll talk about later very easily. Okay, that's cash, and it's not cheap, right? That dark web data could be $500, $1,000. It just depends, and it's one of those things where it may or may not exist, and I might have to find a different victim, but there's plenty of them, and it didn't take very long. Okay, so I'm going to create Chester James Reed III's identity, right? I'm going to sign in, and then I'm going to go sign up and set some bait. What bait am I going to set? I'm going to go to Wix or one of those site creation tools that give me a domain as part of it, that allow me to set up. And I'm going to put in a picture, and I'm going to say, okay, for $17 a month, I'm able to get 2 collaborators. I just need 1. It's just me, just bad Matt. I'm going to use somebody else's money, of course. 2 gig of space, don't need that. Oh, and a light marketing suite to start sending emails to realtors or to other people, or maybe nothing. And we'll see how this plays out as this goes. So I set up and legitimize that I'm Chester James Reed III, and that I have a property for sale, and I'm selling it under market value by like 40 grand or so. Okay. So I'm going to go set up a Google Voice number. So you can call me on this Google Voice number, and I'm going to access that in ways that I can try to hide who I am and try to be very OPSEC about it. New burner phone, things of that nature. Okay, Gmail account, so that I can have emails coming to me, right? I'm going to set that up for Chester and make sure that it's the point of contact on this site. Why? Well, as Tom Lawrence's awesome meme says here in a minute, and I also do a voice changer to sound just like Chester James Reed III. If it's for sale on the internet, it has to be true. Thank you, Tom Lawrence, for the dope memes. Your meme work is what actually floats my boat. But for real, how many times does this play out? You're like, no, I saw an ad for it. I mean, this goes all the way back to catalog days, right? The catalog, and you're like, bro, I absolutely have a hovercraft coming. And it shows up, and it's like a pile of metal, and it doesn't even get off the ground. It was never meant to, right? Like, it was absolute total garbage. The point is that we trust because of that, and it puts us in a position of trust. I used to do a talk at conferences where I would just pick the front row and go, hey, front row, do you guys want to stand up? Yeah, y'all, please. I put a gift card for $500 from PAX 8 underneath your seats. Why don't y'all look? One of y'all has it. Make them look for 45 seconds and go, hey, listen, just because I'm on stage, you shouldn't trust me, right? I took advantage of trust. There's no gift card. Have a seat. They hate me for that. One lady goes, you owe me $500. Anyways, I digress. But the point is, we trust because it's on the internet. So if I get a site and set it up, I'm likely to lure a realtor. Why? Because the realtor wants to sell it for the right price. I sold it under market. And they're like, hey, and I asked Copilot to write this for me. Hey, write me an email, right, from a local realtor trying to tell me how they could sell it better even after closing costs. And they did. Hey, listen, high estimate, $4,600 or $11,500 in closing costs. Low estimate, $4,600, right, 2 to 5%, which let me know if that's way off, but that's what I could find. And so essentially they made the argument that, hey, you're going to take home more money than you were going to get before at 200 where you're listing it, and we'll legitimize and sell. We'll sell it for you, right? So we'll sell it for you, which puts it on the MLS, which puts it in places that can be found, that to some degree legitimizes it. And I'm betting that realtor doesn't necessarily have to meet me. I could be out of town. I could be doing things in another place, right? So I'm going to take advantage of that. So Vince, the realtor, reaches out. Chester and Vince, me, Chester, and Chester James Reed III, negotiate the listing price, and all paperwork is sent to this Chester James Reed III, myself. I then receive that paperwork, agree, move forward, sign things, get him happy, right? It's not going to be under a lot of scrutiny at this point, so I sign. And that might be a mistake. Maybe that's a mistake. But I'm going to sign that. I returned the paperwork and the property is placed on MLS. How much have I spent? I'm at $17 for Wix. I spent $500 in my guess, let's say, for the dark web data about Chester James Reed III. I have $1. I'm at a total of $593, y'all. So I've spent $593, presumably of other people's credit cards stolen. Might have to be my own bootstrapping methods of doing something, but hopefully we can do that to obscure it. The nice thing is if I had to do the cash into Bitcoin, that wouldn't be so bad when it comes to dark web buying. So could keep those costs to the credit card levels now that I've thought about it. All right, that said, $593. But guess what? One day I get a call and Vince is like, listen, Chester. I think he says it that way now too. It's just awesome. But listen, Chester, you've got a buyer. They're ready to meet. Let's meet this buyer. It's going to be awesome. It's Paul and Ginny. Let me tell you about Paul and Ginny. This is awesome. This is great because they are in the perfect position to buy this property. They are the right couple to own this property. They've been married 19 years. They're in their late 30s, right? They just sold a company they owned. Like, imagine that elation. Like, you worked somewhere 11 years and drove your heart and soul into it, and you finally exit after you pay the taxes, which I promise you there's taxes. After you pay the taxes, and now you have this money, and you have something that you want it to do something for you, just fulfill a dream. We all die one day. So Paul and Ginny decide to fulfill that dream. They are ready. They're going to buy a property, use that down payment to fund a construction loan to build their forever property, right? Their kids are almost out of the house. They're living their life and they're ready. They want that. And this is the perfect lot for them. It has all the amenities, all the things they want. It's right near the place they want to be. It's wonderful. Paul and Ginny call Vince and say, listen, do you mind representing me? Whew, one realtor, both sides of the transaction, baby. Right. Okay, cool. They offer $210,000, but they'll pay all the closing costs. They're willing to take all the closing costs on at the $210,000. They think it's fair. They think the number works out. And it's all they can afford. That's what they have. That's what they have. That's what they have. And they don't want to take a loan because they can't be encumbered. They need the lack of PMI. They want the construction loan terms right. All right. So Vince is in a crossroads, just like many realtors that might be watching this have been before. And they're like, all right, let's reach out and see if Chester is going to take this. I'm going to call him. I know it's probably lower than what he wants. It's not what I promised. It's going to bring him just 10 grand more than he thought, but it's in the range. Maybe he'll be good. But you know what? Chester's having a good day, right? Chester James Reed III just played golf this morning. I saw my grandkids. Like, I'm so happy for this couple's vision that I'm going to turn on my voice changer and I'm going to reply, yeah, you know what? I'm good, but we need a fast closing. I'm going out of the country. We need to take care of this. Let's do this in the next 15 days. Hopefully this is a cash buyer. It is. Vince said, yeah, they literally have cash. They're good. No, this is great. Do you have any mortgages? No, I'm good. Oh, this is awesome. Wonderful. Okay. We'll move forward with the closing. We've reached a deal. It's awesome. Vince is happy, right? Paul and Ginny are stoked. They're about to build their forever home. And Chester James Reed III, presumably after his golf day in time with, oh, no, wait. I'm pretty stoked too. I'm pretty stoked too. All right, let's move forward. We've reached a deal. Now I got to reel it in. I got to get paid. Okay, let's do it. Well, I got to get a notary stamp. Why, Matt? You'll find out. I've got to find a closing agent. I got to find somebody that's going to be my sucker. I have to get someone that I can get through underwriting. It's going to allow me to get where I need to go. I need to schedule a closing date, right? But that notary stamp has to be in before the closing date, so I need to make sure I'm timing that out well. So what am I going to do for the notary? How do I want to approach this? And I thought about it for a minute, and I looked at a couple of cases that have come out. And I just decided to go to public record. I actually want to thank the attorney that's actually been through this before that shared this tip with me. I went to public record and just pulled the notary stamp. I found the guy that's been notarizing his stuff to make it seem even more logical for the last several years. Chester James Reed got his signature. Edward D. Herrera, Notary Public, I got his notary ID. I have the expiration date. I can do forward calculations on when that expiration date is going to expire. I can check to see if he's still a notary, right? I can even check to see if he's still working in the industry. Sorry, Edward, I love you. But yes, good to see you, buddy. Okay, I can go order a stamp. I don't even have to ship it to myself anywhere they validate. I can just order a notary stamp. And so I do for $22. I put in Edward's information and my expiration date. I put in the color I want. I even put in the notes, not used for theft, I promise. So that way they knew I wasn't using it for theft. And so I now have a stamp. I can go and do that. I have his signature. I've seen where he signed it before. I can try to emulate those things and make it pass. But I go to the first closing agent. And the first closing agent, it's a tale of two different cities. right? The first closing agent says, no, my underwriters thinks this is sus. I'm not doing it. I don't feel like it's okay. Something's feeling wrong. And I had to walk on, but it wasn't a problem. I found the next guy. I get this person to do it because their underwriter's more lax potentially. They have some things that they actually have control over, and they have more of a relationship they can abuse there to get the deal done. All the things we love them for as realtors or as other people in transactions are the things that I would try to abuse. Okay, how do we close this thing out? Let's see what we do here. Now we got to bail out. I can't show up. I don't look like Chester James Reed III. That would be a real problem. And I want to make sure I'm in a state that doesn't have remote notary, so they can't force me down that path. So I'm going to bail. At the last minute, my poor wife of the last 35 years has collapsed, and I'm hysterical. I don't care if we just blow this off. I don't care. And I mean, listen, if I don't know, I can sign it. If you can get the documents to me, I can have my notary come pick them up. If you don't mind, like I'll send a courier. Like I don't know what to do here. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Sally's been my rock, and I don't know what to do. Okay, cool. I suggest the notary comes to me. Have a courier deliver the documents. Chester signs the documents. Has a local courier bring it in. Smooth closing. Why? It's cash. It's cash from a cash buyer and a cash seller that has no encumbrance. It's only a title insurance check away. Paul and Jenny wire the money to closing agent escrow. Funds are released to Chester. Well, where'd that money go? What do you mean released to Chester? We'll get back to that. I want to celebrate with Paul and Jenny for a minute. Their life is amazing. They just closed on their property. They're stoked. AI makes them look like the people in Smile, by the way. I don't know if y'all been paying attention. This is rough. But all right, anyways. They closed on their property. They're ready to get building. They start going down that path. They have the plot of land. They're ready to move forward. Well, I have to cash out. What money are we talking about? How do I get the money out? Well, in the interim, in that 15 days, I used a stolen ID that I got to remotely set up a bank account where they allowed me to upload pictures of my documents. I was able to start the account in Chester James Reed III's name. I put the fourth as the beneficiary because I care. I used the stolen social security number, date of birth, and information to pass through the bank KYC information, to pass through the, that aspect of it. The LCTR aspect of it might freeze the money for a little bit, but I'm betting I can play out a large currency transaction, or I guess some currency would be more like a SAR. But either way, a new wire coming into a new account may be paused a minute. But I have some time, I believe, in my hands. So I'm going to set up this account. I'm going to use the same notary to sign the bank documents because he's already been notarizing stuff for me before. It's logical, right? I'm going to bring that in from those remote documents where I can. Once the wire funds are clear, I want to move the money to Bitcoin exchanges. I'm going to use that to wire that out to a Bitcoin exchange. And then I'm going to pay somebody on the dark web to wash those funds, to try to hide the source of their origin, to try to take them and launder them, just like we've seen in any other thing, and try to hide where they came from so that I don't even tie back to Chester, even though Chester James Reed III will ultimately figure this out, I would wager. I want to use a money mule to bring me that hard cash. Even if that means I have to pay some cash for that, it costs me 10 points as a VIG or whatever it may be, in addition to the washing funds. It might even be a service in that washing of funds. But I want that cash. I want the cash in my hands. Let's do the math. I'm 593, 25, and 50. I got 210 coming in. Let's say it cost me 10%, $21,000 for the washing of funds, and another $5 for the mule to bring me that cash. I'm at $183,000 and $332 in raw profit in this simulation of just stealing a property. Well, what about Paul and Jenny and their happy life? Well, first off, I'm a happy guy. I got the gold. Okay, that done. All right, so now the collapse. This is where it really sucks, and I'm so sorry for anybody that I am going to trigger from a PTSD perspective that's been through this, whether it be Chester or the buyer. But the collapse happens. The happy couple closes on their construction loan. It took them, let's say, 15, 20 days after the initial or whatever it may be. They then decide that they're going to break ground in 3 more weeks after that. So I'm already, 5 weeks of time that allows me to potentially wait on those holds on the funds for the wire transfer to bake in so that I can egress those funds. So just putting an idea on the timing there from that perspective. Now we're going to break ground. It's awesome. Little they know it, but Paul and Jenny and Vince and closing agent and Chester's lives, real Chester's lives, are about to descend into chaos. And it might be over the next 6 to 7 months that this plays out. Because Bob the Builder was hired. And he's over the moon to take on, yeah, Bob the Builder's awesome. Sorry if anybody's going to sue me on rights on that one. But Bob is over the moon to take this multi-million-dollar build, to build this forever house for them. And he's so stoked. He's hired, construction permits filed. And it's time to happen. Like, they're actually pouring concrete. They've been out there. They've broken ground. They've leveled. They've got bricks down. They're starting to pour concrete. They have forms ready. You can see the bathroom. You can see the basement. You can see the things starting to take shape. But at the same time, so can Chester. Chester lives up the street. He's visiting his house in Grand Lake, and he sees this construction on what looks like the whole property that his whole Reed family partnership and himself own. In fact, it's the property that he was going to sell to his grandson one day to build on. It's why it wasn't in the Reed Limited Family Partnership. He contacts the young couple and says, listen, what the hell are you talking about? Why'd you sell it to me then if you're so angry that we're building on it? What are you talking about? Quickly realized there's some fraud existing, and Chester calls his attorney. Title claims are filed, lawsuits ensue, and everything goes crazy. And thank you for the gentleman that shared your direct story with me for this, as this is how it played out for you. In that case, there was actually an E&O filed against the attorney as well. Title company, all of that playing out. Everybody's game over, except for at this point, Bad Matt. Bad Matt's doing all right. So what are the red flags? What should I look for if I'm in a title or closing agent position, if I'm in a realtor position, if I'm living in this world? What should I look for? Red flags. Seller refuses to meet in person. Straight up. If you can't ever meet the person, they're probably trying to fraud you. Now, I understand their circumstances, and I bet these happen all the time, but better verification processes sure as hell need to exist if they will not meet in person. Seller doesn't want a for sale sign in the property. Why? Because if I have a for sale sign, Chester James Reed III might actually see it and not appreciate it. Right? Stop the transaction. Seller provides a different mailing address than the property or legal mailing address from the appraiser's office. Yes, you can go check on that. Yeah, right. Exactly, Eddie. Urgency. You can go check on that. Does the address they gave you match the legal address for all mailing filings coming from the state on those properties or the city on those properties? Like, boop, check, right? Seller requires their own notary. And somehow in the transaction, the seller requires to use their notary. Whether it's for convenience, whether it's for cost, whether it's for I'm rich and I can, whatever it might be, that's a big red flag. If the seller has never met anyone in the transaction in person, so like even if you can't meet them with them, have they met anyone? Like, have they met you, realtor, you buyers, you title, have they met anyone? If the answer is no, up the level of scrutiny in which you're validating your sellers and buyers, same definition. How do I protect myself? Okay. Ask a real estate agent if they've ever met in person. That tops off the point I just made. Mail a letter to the owner of the property from public records and just say, hey, I'm party to your transaction. I just wanted to let you know. And anybody in states that's not legal, please tell me. I apologize. But in my mind, letting them know in some way outside of the comms process that's been established by the threat actor, brilliant, winning, right? So send a letter and say, hey, we're helping you with your closing. What closing? Done. We kill it right there. Control the notary process. Period. Control the notary. Every single case that I looked at that I could find people either chatting about or in actual filings, there's very little, or in news articles, there was a notary process abuse happening. People absconded from the notary process that was in place and did their own notary process in some form or fashion. Look at the early documents from the realtor. See if the signatures there held to the same scrutiny from an OPSEC perspective of the ones that are coming with the notary stamp that's going to go to the underwriter. Even if those documents aren't necessarily going to be scrutinized, look and see if they match. See if I was lazy. See if I didn't take the time to emulate that signature at that point because it was just in a sale phase. Hopefully I did, but it's a good place to catch. And also this one, like I feel like, my granddad sitting on the porch again, like, son, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If it feels too good to be true, it probably is. That was his life. That was what life is about. That was his definition. But I'm teasing a little bit, but trust your instinct. If it feels wrong, rushed, urgent, too good to be true, perfect transaction, it might not be, and you might be right. I'd also say, in general, stay up on these types of things. I did a lot of my research from Alta and FLTA and a few others that I could find that were talking about this, and they're out there. These guides are out there for you to stay educated on your own craft and continue to understand how this happens and what to do to protect yourself. I hope I've added a little bit of value. I'll pause now for any questions in the chat, and I hope I've added a little bit of value, and I'll take any questions. Should have been there for the questions in the live. That was fun. We had a good time because two things came up, and you might be here now. One, until questions come in, I'll just talk for a sec. One, the lady goes, I know that guy, Edward D. Herrera. I know him. He worked for me for like 6 years. Like, he is still a title agent. He is still a notary. I know he is. And I was like, I checked, but that's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, that's neat. The other one that came of this was actually thank you so much, Eddie. The other one that came was Ryan Walsh, very high executive at PAX 8. I mentioned the name Chester James Reed III. He goes, I worked for Chester. He actually worked for him in Grand Lake when he was working there, I guess, over a summer as a younger man. But it was just hilarious that those kind of things happen. So anyways, hope this is great for y'all. It was great. Eddie said the spouse health issue was a nice touch. Yeah, you want to make it like painful. You want someone to trigger that emotional aspect to make them think wrong, right? You can call it urgency. You can approach it from a number of phases. You can approach it from the MICE methodology, right? If you wanted to, money, ideology, coercion, or ego, playing to any of those strings allow you to do that, depending on how you're wanting to manipulate that. And I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I would just say that as I think about it, those are the methods I would try to approach, tried and true. Anyways, thank you all for being here. I sure appreciate it. If there's no questions or nobody wants to make fun of my trade craft, feel free if you need to on that as well. I definitely, for anybody super in this business, will find some flaws, I'm sure. But thank you all for being here. I appreciate it. I'm going to end the stream. Maybe. I got to find my mouse first, though. That doesn't have a high efficacy right now.